You are sitting at your kitchen table on a Tuesday morning, sipping coffee in your pajamas, when suddenly your phone buzzes. You check it, and there it is. A notification that $1,500 just landed in your bank account. Not because you worked overtime, not because you sold something on the internet, but simply because you own shares in companies that decided to share their profits with you. Sounds like a dream, right? Well, what if I told you that this dream is absolutely achievable, and the math behind it is simpler than you think? I am Hamster. I help people understand how to build wealth through smart investing strategies. If you are curious about creating passive income streams that could eventually replace your day job, hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if you find it helpful. Now, before you start imagining yourself as some Wall Street wizard counting stacks of cash, let me bring you back down to earth for a moment. Earning $1,500 per month in dividends is not a get-rich-quick scheme, and it is definitely not something that happens overnight. But here is the thing that might surprise you. It is also not as impossible as most people think. The real question is not whether it can be done, but how much money you actually need to invest to make it happen. Before we dive into the numbers, let me explain why this goal matters. A steady stream of $1,500 per month covers a significant portion of basic living expenses for many people: rent or mortgage, groceries, utilities. It means you could work a job you love even if it pays less, or take a sabbatical, or simply stress less about money. This is not early retirement for everyone, but it is a massive step toward financial independence. Here is where things get interesting, and frankly where most people get completely confused. The amount of money you need depends entirely on something called dividend yield. That is the percentage of your investment that gets paid back to you annually in the form of dividends. Think of it like this. If you put money in a savings account that pays 2% interest, you know exactly what you are getting. Dividend yields work similarly, except instead of boring bank interest, you are getting paid by actual companies for owning a piece of their business. But here is where it gets tricky. And this is something that trips up even experienced investors. Not all dividend yields are created equal, and chasing the highest yield you can find is like chasing fool's gold. It looks shiny from a distance, but it might just fool you in the end. Imagine you are shopping for dividend stocks and you come across two options. Company A offers a modest 3.2% dividend yield. Company B is flashing a tempting 12% yield. Your first instinct might be to think, well, that is obvious. I will take the 12% and make nearly 4 times as much money. But hold on there, Speedy Gonzalez. That 12% yield might be there for some very uncomfortable reasons. Sometimes a sky-high dividend yield is like a clearance sale at a clothing store. Everything is marked down because something is wrong with the merchandise. In the investing world, an unusually high yield often signals one of two things. Either the company is struggling and the stock price has plummeted, making the yield appear artificially high, or the company is paying out more than it can actually afford, which means those generous payments might disappear faster than free donuts in an office break room. This is why smart dividend investors typically look for yields that fall somewhere between 1.5% and 5.5%. Yes, I know that sounds conservative compared to those flashy double-digit numbers, but remember, we are trying to build sustainable wealth here, not gamble our money away on companies that might cut their dividends tomorrow. One important metric to check is the payout ratio, the percentage of earnings a company pays out as dividends. A payout ratio above 80% or 90% is a red flag. It means the company is paying out almost all of its profits, leaving little room for error. If earnings dip, the dividend gets cut. Look for payout ratios between 40% and 70% for safety. So let us get into the real numbers. If you want to earn $1,500 per month in dividends, you are looking at $18,000 per year in passive income. Now, depending on which dividend yield you are targeting, the amount of money you need to invest varies dramatically, and I mean dramatically. The conservative approach. Let us say you decide to invest in a broad dividend-focused fund that yields around 3.2% annually. This is the kind of investment that holds stable, established companies, the boring but reliable type that have been paying dividends for decades. Think of companies like Procter & Gamble, Coca-Cola, and Johnson & Johnson. These are not the exciting stocks that make headlines, but they are the ones that keep paying you month after month, year after year. At a 3.2% yield, you would need approximately $562,500 invested to generate $18,000 annually, or $1,500 per month. Now I can practically hear some of you gasping at that number. $562,500. That is more than most people's houses are worth. But before you close this video and go back to scrolling through cat memes, stick with me for a moment. Here is what is fascinating about dividend investing. It is not just about the immediate income. Many of the companies paying you dividends also increase their payments over time. It is like getting an annual raise without having to ask your boss or sit through an awkward performance review. Some companies have been increasing their dividends every single year for 20, 30, or even 50 years straight. Imagine if your salary increased automatically every year for your entire career. That is essentially what happens with many quality dividend-paying companies. The balanced approach. What if you invested in something that tracks the overall stock market, like an S&P 500 index fund? You would get a mix of dividend income and growth potential. The current dividend yield on the S&P 500 is around 1.4% to 1.6%. Let us use 2% for a slightly higher estimate. Some international or value funds yield more. At 2%, you would need $900,000 to generate $1,500 monthly. That is even more money. So why would anyone do that? Because the growth potential is much higher. Historically, the S&P 500 has returned about 9% to 10% annually, including dividends. So while your dividend income starts lower, your total return is larger. You could eventually sell some of your holdings to supplement your income. The growth approach. Instead of focusing on dividends, you invest in growth stocks, companies that reinvest their earnings to expand. These pay very little in dividends, often under 1%. At 0.9%, you would need about $2 million to generate $1,500 monthly in pure dividends. That sounds insane, right? But here is the kicker. Because these investments grow so much faster, you might actually reach your income goal sooner by occasionally selling small portions of your holdings rather than relying solely on dividend payments. This is called a total return strategy. The beauty of true dividend investing is its simplicity. You buy the stocks, they send you checks, and you sleep well at night knowing that companies are working to pay you. There is something deeply satisfying about earning money while you are literally doing nothing else. Now, I have not even mentioned some of the more specialized approaches that could potentially get you to that $1,500 monthly target with less money invested. But they come with their own unique sets of risks and considerations. One popular strategy involves sector-specific investing, putting all your eggs in one industry basket. Energy companies, for example, often offer dividend yields around 4.5% to 5.2%. At a 4.8% yield, you would need about $375,000 to hit that $1,500 monthly target. Sounds great, right? Well, ask anyone who invested heavily in oil and gas companies over the past few years how that worked out for them. It has been a roller coaster ride that would make even the most seasoned theme park enthusiast queasy. When oil prices crash, those dividends can get cut faster than you can say diversification. Real estate investment trusts, REITs, offer another interesting avenue. These companies own and operate income-producing real estate, and they are legally required to pay out most of their profits as dividends. It is like being a landlord without having to deal with tenant calls about broken toilets at 2 a.m. Many REITs offer yields in the 5.5% to 7% range. At a 6.5% yield, you would need about $277,000 to generate $1,500 monthly. That is roughly half the capital needed for the conservative 3.2% approach. But here is where REITs get tricky. They are sensitive to interest rate changes, economic conditions, and the overall health of the real estate market. When the economy is humming, REITs often perform beautifully. When things get rocky, they can test your patience. In 2008, many REITs cut their dividends sharply. Then there is the individual stock approach. This is like deciding to become your own fund manager, except you probably do not have a team of analysts and a Bloomberg terminal. Some individual dividend stocks offer yields of 7%, 8%, or even 9%. At an 8.5% yield, you would need only about $212,000 to hit your $1,500 monthly target. Sounds tempting, right? But here is the reality check. When you invest in individual stocks, you are essentially putting all your faith in the management teams and business models of a handful of companies. Sometimes this works out spectacularly. Other times, you wake up one morning to discover that your high yielding dividend stock has decided to cut its dividend by 60% because, surprise, the business is not doing as well as everyone thought. I have seen investors chase high yielding individual stocks like they are chasing the latest trendy restaurant, only to end up disappointed when the food does not live up to the hype. The appeal is obvious. Who would not want to earn more money with less capital? But the risk is equally obvious once you start paying attention to what actually happens to companies that pay unsustainable dividends. Consider a company like AT&T before 2022. It had a yield over 7% for years, and many income investors loaded up on it. Then the company cut its dividend by nearly 50% as part of a spinoff. Investors who had relied on that income saw their monthly checks slashed overnight. The stock price also dropped. That is the risk of chasing high yield without looking at the underlying business. This brings us to a crucial concept that most people completely overlook when they start dreaming about dividend income. The sustainability factor. It is not enough to find investments that pay high dividends today. You need investments that can keep paying those dividends tomorrow, next year, and ideally for decades to come. Think about it this way. If you are planning to rely on dividend income, you are essentially entering into a long-term relationship with these companies. You want partners who are reliable, stable, and likely to stick around for the long haul. You do not want to wake up one day to find they have run off with someone else, taking your monthly income with them. This is why many successful dividend investors focus on what are called dividend aristocrats, companies that have increased their dividend payments for at least 25 consecutive years. These are the Warren Buffetts of the dividend world. Steady, reliable, and probably not going to surprise you with any dramatic personality changes. Companies like Procter & Gamble, Coca-Cola, and Johnson & Johnson have been paying and increasing dividends through recessions, market crashes, and various economic upheavals. But here is something that might surprise you about these ultra-reliable dividend payers. They often do not offer the highest yields. A company like Coca-Cola might only yield around 2.8%, which means you would need over $640,000 to generate your $1,500 monthly. The trade-off is that this dividend income is about as reliable as gravity, and it tends to grow over time. There are also dividend champions, 25 plus years of increases, and dividend kings, 50 plus years. Only a handful of companies have achieved king status, like Procter & Gamble, Coca-Cola, and Johnson & Johnson. These are the gold standard of reliability. Now let us talk about timing, because this is where dividend investing gets really interesting from a life planning perspective. The amount of money you need to generate $1,500 in monthly dividend income might seem overwhelming right now, but remember, you do not need to come up with this money all at once. Most successful dividend investors build their portfolios gradually over many years, taking advantage of something called dollar cost averaging. Here is how this works in practice. Instead of trying to scrape together $562,500 tomorrow, you might start by investing $600 or $1,200 per month into dividend-paying investments. Over time, not only does your invested capital grow, but those dividends you are earning get reinvested to buy even more shares, which pay even more dividends, which buy even more shares. It is like a financial snowball effect, except instead of rolling downhill, it is rolling toward your retirement. Let me show you a real projection using the 3.2% yield approach. Suppose you start with $10,000 and add $800 per month. You reinvest all dividends at a 7% total return, 3.2% yield plus 3.8% price growth. Here is what happens. After 5 years, approximately $70,000 invested, approximately $190 per month in dividends. After 10 years, approximately $160,000 invested, approximately $425 per month. After 15 years, approximately $280,000 invested, approximately $750 per month. After 20 years, approximately $440,000 invested, approximately $1,170 per month. After 25 years, approximately $660,000 invested, approximately $1,760 per month. In 25 years, you would exceed your $1,500 monthly goal. That is a long time, but this assumes no increase in your monthly contributions. If you increase your savings as your income grows, you can cut that timeline significantly. The beautiful thing about this approach is that it takes advantage of time and compound growth. Those early dividend payments might seem tiny, maybe $50 or $100 per month, but they are working around the clock to help you reach that $1,500 monthly target. It is the tortoise and hare story, except in this version, the tortoise wins and gets to retire early. But here is where most people mess up their dividend investing strategy, and it is a mistake that can cost them thousands of dollars over time. They get so excited about receiving dividend payments that they spend them instead of reinvesting them. It is like planting a fruit tree and then eating all the seeds instead of planting them to grow more trees. When you reinvest those dividends, you are essentially telling your money to go make more money while you binge watch Netflix or argue with strangers on the internet. It is the closest thing to actual magic that exists in the financial world. Let me show you why starting early is so critical. Assume both want to reach the same $1,500 monthly dividend income using a 3.2% yield, so a target portfolio of $562,500. Lisa starts at age 25. She invests $500 per month and reinvests all dividends. She reaches $562,500 at age 52, 27 years later. Her total contributions, $162,000. The rest came from growth and reinvested dividends. Mark starts at age 35. He has to invest $1,200 per month to reach the same target by age 60, 25 years later. His total contributions, $360,000. That is more than twice what Lisa contributed. The earlier you start, the less you need to save each month. Time is your most powerful ally. Every year you delay, you have to save dramatically more to catch up. But here is something nobody talks about when they are fantasizing about dividend income. Taxes. I know, taxes are about as fun to discuss as root canal procedures, but ignoring them is like planning a road trip and forgetting you need gas money. Depending on where you hold your dividend-paying investments, Uncle Sam might want his cut of your monthly $1,500. If you are holding these investments in a regular taxable brokerage account, those dividend payments are generally considered taxable income. Some dividends, called qualified dividends, get preferential tax treatment, meaning they are taxed at capital gains rates, 0%, 15%, or 20%, rather than ordinary income rates. But you still need to factor this into your calculations. $1,500 in gross dividend income might only leave you with $1,200 to $1,300 after taxes, depending on your tax bracket. That means you actually need to generate more like $1,700 to $1,800 monthly to net your target amount. This is where tax-advantaged accounts like Roth IRAs, traditional IRAs, and 401ks become your best friends. Inside these accounts, dividends can grow and compound without the annual tax drag, which dramatically accelerates your journey to that monthly income target. The trade-off is that you generally cannot touch the money without penalties until you reach retirement age, which might not align with your dreams of early financial independence. But if you are investing for the long term, these accounts are incredibly powerful. So you want to start building toward $1,500 monthly in dividends. Here is a practical step-by-step plan. Step 1. Open a brokerage account if you do not have one. I recommend a low-cost provider like Vanguard, Fidelity, or Schwab. If you plan to use a Roth IRA for tax-free dividends, open that instead. Step 2. Fund the account with an initial amount, even $100 is fine. Step 3. Choose your first investment. For beginners, a low-cost dividend ETF like VYM, Vanguard High Dividend Yield, or SCHD, Schwab US Dividend Equity, is a great start. These have expense ratios under 0.10% and yields around 3%. Step 4. Set up automatic monthly contributions. Automate $100, $200, or whatever you can afford. Treat it like a bill you must pay. Step 5. Enable automatic dividend reinvestment, DRIP. This ensures every dividend buys more shares automatically. Step 6. Ignore the daily noise. Do not check your portfolio every day, check it once a quarter. Remember, you are not trying to get rich overnight. You are building a machine that will eventually pay you $1,500 every month forever. That machine takes time to build, but it is one of the most reliable wealth-building tools ever invented. Let me wrap up with the most common mistakes I see people make when pursuing dividend income. Mistake number 1, chasing high yield without understanding the business. A 12% yield might look great, but if the company is struggling, that dividend could be cut. Always check the payout ratio and the company's history of dividend payments. Mistake number 2, not diversifying. Putting all your money into one sector, like energy or REITs, is risky. Spread your investments across multiple sectors and asset classes. Mistake number 3, spending dividends before you have reached your goal. If you spend the $50 dividend check you get in year 2, you are robbing your future self of dozens of dollars of future income. Reinvest until you have enough. Mistake number 4, ignoring taxes. If you are investing in a taxable account, understand how qualified dividends work and what tax bracket you're in. Better yet, use a Roth IRA. Mistake number 5, checking your portfolio too often and panicking. Dividends are long-term investments. A dip in share price does not affect the dividend payment unless the company cuts it. Stop watching CNBC. Mistake number 6, assuming dividends are guaranteed. No dividend is guaranteed. Companies can and do cut dividends. Stick to companies with long histories of increases and reasonable payout ratios. So there you have it, the not-so-secret formula for generating $1,500 per month in dividends. Whether you need $562,500 for a reliable 3.2% yield, $375,000 for a higher yield sector approach, or you are willing to take on more risk with REITs or individual stocks requiring less capital, the path exists. The real question is not whether you can build this passive income stream. It is whether you are willing to start today instead of waiting for the perfect moment that never comes. Remember, every dividend aristocrat started as someone's first stock purchase. Every $1,500 monthly dividend check started as a tiny $2 dividend that was reinvested. The snowball takes time to grow, but once it starts rolling, it becomes unstoppable. Do not worry about the big number. Worry about the first $100, the first $1,000, the first $10,000. Each milestone brings you closer to that magical $1,500 per month. So open your brokerage account, buy your first share, reinvest that first tiny dividend, and let time do what time does best, make you richer. If this video helped you understand the real math behind dividend income, hit that like button and subscribe for more honest, no BS finance. I am Hamster. See you in the next one.